smoothen out that role. So executives take on a more logistical role in certain parts, while directors are actually, the people that the community sees and recognizes, as usually has been the case. And so today we're having our directorship Q&A to learn more about the directorships, because there have been some changes that we've had this recent the start of this recent academic year. And so what we're going to do is we're going to run through a few questions that I believe were submitted to us in advance about the directorships. And then we can have an open Q&A where you can ask questions about, and I highly encourage this because the questions are not going to be, maybe the most thorough, because maybe you have some unaddressed questions that would help navigate and guide you to applying for the right directorship or not. So what we'll do is we'll go over those pre-submitted questions together. And then the audience here, the community members here, inshallah, and direct your questions to the overall exec. So maybe a specific exec if for any reason you want to address a specific executive, inshallah, and then we can proceed therein. I do want to let you all know that we are gonna have more ways to ask questions. Like Ahmed mentioned, the form here is anonymous as well. So if you have a question that you want to ask anonymously, we will be keeping our eyes on that as well. And so, yeah, does everyone kind of understand the structure of today's Q&A? Or did I miss anything important? I don't think so. Inshallah khair. Alhamdulillah, we want to thank the community, for giving us this ability, for giving us, for trusting us with, the executive position. We thank Allah foremost for everything. We make dua that Allah accepts from us and helps guide us to what's best. Ameen. And alhamdulillah, we can start with our Q&A, inshallah. So I guess we'll go over the first few questions first. And I guess, Ahmed, you can start with the first one that was pre-submitted, and inshallah, we can go from there.
Okay, so assalamu alaikum everyone. The first question we got was, if you apply for 2 directorship positions and get accepted into both, can you decide to only accept one position? So first of all, like during the interview, if you're selected to interview for both positions, we kind of ask you for your, one second, someone, yeah, we're gonna ask you for your preference, so we have an idea, and we will, like, most likely we will make that decision ourselves. So offer you your top choice, but that would really depend. It's a difficult question to answer because it really depends on who applies, who we interviewed for the other position. So it's very difficult to give an answer to that question. Yeah, there's a lot of factors. Anyone wants to chime in from the exec team? Feel free. But it's just a very difficult question to answer out.
Yeah, so I guess I'll jump in. The actual position, of course, we limited, if you notice, kind of the amount of choices you have compared to last year. So instead of 3 directorships, you now can only choose 2. And the reason for this is we want to figure out what your primary interests are as regards to the directorships. So we believe that every directorship is a big part of it is dependent on having a passion and a vision for the role. And so if you do have a clear preference, like Ahmed asked, we are going to distinguish by write both your applications, your written applications, to the best of your ability, and then we will invite you, of course, depending upon your responses and some other factors, where you can then, I guess, vouch for your own preference there as well, if that clarifies things.
I just want to mention also, just in case anyone's unfamiliar with it a little bit, for subdirectors, you can be a subdirector across multiple directorships, but you can only be one director. So you can't accept 2 directorship roles, because the question is asking, can you decide to accept only one? You have to decide to accept only one. So you can be a director for 2 different directorships. Whereas subdirector, you could be a subdirector across multiple directorships. Does anybody have any more thoughts to add on that? I hope that answers the question, inshallah. If you have any follow-up questions, feel free to just like unmute or drop it in the chat or anything, and inshallah we'll answer those, because I'm sure that's a very natural part of
think that should answer it, inshallah. So maybe we can move on to and if you guys need clarifications, feel free to respond. But inshallah, we can move on to the second question now, inshallah.
All right, so the next question we have, somebody asked, how should one prepare for directorship interviews? So first and foremost, start by making dua. And the most common dua one should make in this instance, رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي, from Musa alayhi salam. Once you do that, now you tie your camel and you prepare for the interview. What I would do, firstly, I would go to previous directors or people who have been in the MSA for a long time, and I would ask their advice on how to prepare for interview, which is, and I would ask for tips and how to approach these questions. Thirdly, how else can one prepare for directorship interviews? I would see if you were previously involved in the MSA, I would look into the directorship and see what stood out in the directorship, what you liked in the directorship, and as a director, what you would like to continue and what improvements you can make. And if there is like an initiative or something that you think that this directorship did not do but should have done, I would perhaps think of that and maybe mention that in the application interview if a question like that came up. So I would just research more about the directorship and try the more you understand it, the more you'll be able to speak about it in the application as well as the interview. Yeah, so inshallah, I hope that answers your question. If any of the other execs want to add in, there is many other ways you could prepare. So if any other execs left anything out, feel free.
Yeah, so like Zein mentioned, so just come with having a clear, I guess, vision of what is your vision for the directorship? What are the things you hope to achieve? And also think of challenges that you might be facing as a director in that position and ways that you may be able to mitigate those situations. Yeah.
So I'll just read the third question then. Another question that we have is, can you only apply for a director role in a directorship you've been previously a part of? So no, the answer to this question is no. This is not a requirement of applying to a directorship, especially for those of you who might be in, in first or second year. This might have been quite difficult. A great example I bring up, mashallah, is I think Brother Saad Malik joined the MSA in third year, and he was president in his fourth. And so, we ask Allah to guide us what's best. Make istikhara, of course, and go ahead and, choose the position that you feel that you would do the best in. And of course, if you have experience in a directorship prior, of course, this is going to be an asset. But it's not, it's not like an exclusive, for example, requirement that you will get the position or you should apply for it. Perhaps you have your interest and your vision settled somewhere else where you feel you can serve the community best. And that would be, I think, the answer for that question. And yeah, get to know the different directorships, maybe expand, perhaps if you've taken a directorship role before, expand your vision, try and do other directorships, it'll help you grow, within the scope of the community as well, inshallah. I think that is, there's that question. And Sister Taima, you can do the question that you brought up, but Sister Zena, do you want to ask the fourth question, inshallah?
If I'm going to do that now, the fourth question that we got was, when would interviews happen, as spring courses are going until the week after next, so final exams will be happening. Inshallah, I believe our intention was to do, someone correct me on the date if I get it wrong, but I think we were planning on doing interviews starting around June 17th. So I think a best course of action is we'll set up a Google Calendar for interview dates And it'll be like a week long, so we'll have a weekend in there as well. Inshallah, interviews shouldn't be too long, so I hope it's not, inshallah, isn't any stress to your exam studying or preparation. But just because we are a little bit later this year than usual because we had some Ramadan and Eid slowdowns, so we want to do them as soon as possible. It'll include a weekend. I think it's actually June 10th or 11th to June 17th or 18th, around then. And if those are complicated dates for you, then definitely feel free to reach out to the exec team, so anyone on the exec team, and let us know. And inshallah, we could arrange for an earlier date or later date, maybe, if that makes it easier. But I don't think the interview should be too long. So hopefully it's not something that's a very burdensome event, but it's around then. So it'll be, if applications are due June 5th, inshallah, then we'll start a few days after that, on the first weekend after that. If anybody wants to add anything or correct me on my dates, then please feel free to do so.
Yeah, it's no, jazakallah khairan. That's like, a really good answer. The dates, of course, there's going to be like a range as well, potentially. In previous years, I think they had you, we gave each person their specific timing, because I know this question is brought up with exams in mind. So like Sister Zena mentioned, during that weekend or during that time frame, we can allot you at whichever time works for you best, inshallah, within a range, specified. But yeah.
Okay, yeah. The next question we got was regarding the interview process. So someone is asking if the interviews will be an individual or in a group, and how many execs will be present. With regards to being individual or group, I'm guessing you mean like the interviewees, so we'll be interviewing one person at a time. How many execs will be present? Because hiring the directors is a team decision, so all 8 of us would be, so that the plan is to have all 8 execs be present for all the interviews. However, the interview again will be recorded, but it will only be accessible or visible to the execs, and the recording will be deleted right after the process is over. And this, again, this will be mentioned before every interview. So before we start the interview, we'll make sure that the person being interviewed is okay with this. But yeah, to answer your question, it will be one person being interviewed at a time, and the plan is to have as many exec members available during the interview or present during the interview, and the ones who are not able to make it will be watching the recording. And then the recording will be deleted when we're done.
Are there any questions from, I guess, while we get more questions in the forum, are there any questions from the audience, of the members here as well? I mean, feel free to also raise your hand, I guess, and, any specific questions, feel free as well within the session. But yeah, I think, yes, so inshallah, there's a question I think that we got on the forum. Rafey, that question that I sent to you, inshallah, can you go ahead and answer this question? Jazakallah khair.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there it is. So someone asked if we don't get the director position, can we still apply for sub-directorships? And the answer is yes, of course you can. And we would love for you to still seek out to get involved in the MSA, even if you don't get a directorship position, because there are, I believe there's 10 directorships, but there's way more opportunities for sub-directors, and sub-directors are what makes the whole MSA. It all starts from the little things that the sub-directors do. So yeah, inshallah, if you don't get a position, then you can still help out in the MSA. You can still be involved in the community, and we encourage you all to apply for a sub-directorship.
Yeah, and I just want to add. Oh, Zein, go ahead. You unmuted first.
No. Go for it.
Okay. I just want to add. So basically, guys, I just want to remind all of us that the point of this, being a director, is to serve the community, is to improve as individuals, get closer to Allah, and this can be accomplished whether you're the director or the sub-director. And also, I mean, think of it from our perspective, yani, mashallah, we get a lot of really, really good applicants, and sometimes it's, you know, very difficult to make a decision. So it's just something important to keep in mind. If you are not selected, does not mean you're not qualified. A lot of times you get many qualified candidates, and you have to make, and we have the burden of making the difficult choice. And then sometimes, you know, as a sub-director, you may be, again, like you can be, expand, I guess, your reach. You can be like sub-director in 2 directorships. And it really gives you like more flexibility. So, yani, inshallah, you do istikhara, and yani, whatever is best for you, inshallah, Allah will make it come to pass.
Yeah, essentially what Brother Ahmed said, and just to add on. So, as he said, like even if you don't get the directorship position, this shouldn't discourage you from becoming a sub-director. And as Brother Rafey mentioned, being a sub-director, you'll actually find that you are very, very heavily involved in MSA, whether you're in 1 directorship or whether you're in 3 directorships. Like the sub-directors and directors do the most work. Like us execs, like we do nothing. We don't do much. So like you will still be heavily, heavily involved in the MSA. So it shouldn't discourage you at all from applying to be a sub-director. Does anyone want to take the next question?
If there are no more thoughts on that one, we had a question, an important question. I think this has come up a lot. Can you speak on the new combined directorship at Al-Qalam? How many sub-directors will be on the team to honor both traditions of Mirs and Maskers? So this is the most radical change that we made this year as an exec team. So inshallah, it works out. Our thought process is that Mirs and Maskers are both these arts-based directorships. They both have written components. Mir accepts a variety of different submissions, such as photography, writing, poetry, etc. And Mirs also has an end of year kind of celebration that contains spoken word and some key elements of what Maskers is. So because of the amount of overlap, and I think because Mirs and Maskers both are kind of these year-end focused events, then we thought it'd be more efficient and it would make for a more productive and more kind of just, it would be a bigger, opportunity, bigger release, I guess, of the magazine and of the year-end festival if we could combine them and combine the efforts of the teams, inshallah. So for instance, if the intention is if the magazine could be released a little bit earlier than end of year, so that Maskers could act as kind of a launch party for that, as well as in combining the aspects that Maskers normally has, such as film festival, the arts, the kind of museum walkthrough, the spoken word, all of that. But because of the amount of overlap across these arts directorships, we thought it'd be more efficient to combine those. And what we suggest in terms of subdirector or, you know, team look is what we were thinking is, and this is of course up to the director, how you want to split up the team. But we, in our opinion, we think it would be efficient to have kind of 2 team leads. So a director as well as 2 team leads, one kind of focused on the magazine and one kind of focused on the festival aspect of it. And in that way, everyone across the team could coordinate on all events. So for instance, previously on Mir, you could be a writer, but as a writer, that's really only your one thing that you do. But now, inshallah, in combining these directorships, you can be a writer who also plans events and helps in that decision-making process. So in terms of the number of sub-directors, that's something that we can't conclude at this time. I think the director will have a greater say in that, but that's where we're at with Al-Qalam. Inshallah, that's the goal. So if anyone has any follow-up questions about that, because I know it's like one of the bigger changes, or if anybody wants to add anything from the execs, then feel free to do so.
Yeah, I might just add as well is like Sister Zena mentioned, it is a quite big of a change, especially because 2 directorships are becoming 1. Now, the thing is that we want basically our vision for this directorship as execs as to why we did this was because both Mirs and Maskers are projects in terms of their final like kind of, you know, events and, you know, like the Maskers Arts Festival and the Mir magazine. So the director would be responsible for basically hiring the leads. So hiring the Mir like lead, the Maskers lead per se, and then, you know, finding a way to kind of, you know, bridge that gap throughout the year. Like examples would be having the same theme, running events that both teams can help with throughout the year, kind of like the socials and the Dawa directorship, you know, using both assets of both teams to kind of work on weekly events throughout the year, but also ensuring that you hire the right leads and you help them with their teams fulfill both those projects. And if you wanted to introduce another project, or again, a lot of that creative liberty is your own. And I guess that leads to our next question, which just give me 1 minute. Yeah. Okay. So our next question is basically, and again, any follow-up questions? Even if you want to re-ask a question or like change it up, submit it through the form, or just I guess put your hand up. But I am going to go to a question that is quite related, because we did talk about like leads and like subdirectors. If you remember what we started with, I guess I'll ask the question first. Is it up to the directors to hire their subdirectors? If so, how involved are the execs in this process? So this question has two main, I think, touching points, which is, what role do the execs have with regards to the directors and their teams, and how much freedom do directors have? So if you notice, most of the questions that we've asked in the application, which we stress that you take your time on, because it is going to be a very, very important distinguishing factor for yourself. A lot of it is vision focused as to what you would do with the role, given the resources and a team that you would inshallah work well with. So the direct answer to the question, is it up to the directors to hire their subdirectors? Yes. If so, how involved are the executives in this process? The relationship that executives have with directors, outside of being part of the kind of the exec director kind of relationship, the executives serve as liaisons. So how that works is every directorship has an executive that they could kind of address, that they could kind of go to for mentorship, but also bring up concerns that are related to their team as well as the overall greater MSA. So the very, very brief answer: directors hire their subdirectors, directors try to fulfill their vision, directors run their team as they see fit, of course within our own boundaries, and execs are there as help and as a means of intervention and guidance where necessary or where found helpful. So that's kind of the difference. So yes, you are going to be hiring your own subdirectors, but for either necessary intervention or help, the execs are here as your liaisons or as kind of your mentor or your consult, if that answers the question. But you do have your creative liberty, which is why we want to hear from you exactly what you're going to do with that liberty or that ability this year, inshallah. Okay. We do have one more question, and I guess I'll just quickly answer this as well because it's part of the same. We're getting a lot of questions about subdirectors, so I'll just explain exactly what that role is. So as you can see, of course, the executives have been elected, and the directors are being hired. Now, subdirectors are the last stage of that exact process. Basically, once the directors are hired, we go through the process of hiring subdirectors and subdirectors applying to different directorships. So after directors are announced, and each position has their specific director that ran and got accepted as the lead of that team, this directorship is now responsible for getting their team together. So if you're like Dawah, you hire subdirectors to help you fulfill your vision and your goal for the Dawah directorship. If you're OSP, you hire OSP team members to help you with your OSP plan. So essentially, your subdirectors are the people you hire to incorporate within your team structure to achieve your goal as a director. So, we recommend that you divide your team appropriately, but as a director, once again, if you feel the need to have let's say your brother's socials and you want to have a sports lead, right? Or you want to have this lead, a marketing subdirector. These are decisions that you make as a director with the help of your liaison. There are no subdirector positions. The director decides upon them themselves. Although, delineating them and distinguishing them would be a great first step as a director. But that's the next stage, inshallah.
Just to answer a question we got earlier. Also, if you have any follow-up questions or if you want to add anything, please feel free to do so at any point. But there was one question that came in: when do decisions on who got accepted for the positions come out? Great question. Inshallah, according to our timeline, we're hoping that decisions will be released a little bit before the end of the month, and that before July comes around, inshallah, we'll have released those. So you'll get notice a couple of days before. We'll say, do you want to accept this role? And then if you accept, inshallah, then we'll release that information a couple of days after.
Okay. Another question we got is, after directors are hired, what tasks must they fulfill before school begins in September? So that's a good question. So first thing is, like Zena said, so by end of June we'll have the directors hopefully selected. Then there will be a orientation process. So there's going to be an orientation. There's going to be some, I guess, training workshops. So that will be happening, I guess, in sometime in July probably. Then we will have to do some planning with regards to the Frosh week, so welcome week, and we hope to have like initiatives that are, I guess, like all directorships. I guess we want them to have them contribute in some way, and on top of that, we want every directorship to have like a vision or a plan for the upcoming fall semester and start executing, I guess, that plan, or like at least having a timeline of the initiatives that they want to have to make sure that that everything is running smoothly, I guess, and then we have like a clear vision of going into the semester. So there's going to be training, there's going to be some planning for welcome week and the general assembly meeting. Inshallah, that's going to be a great opportunity if you're chosen to or selected to be a director. So you expected to have a clear team structure, and we're going to be advertising that heavily so that inshallah incoming first years can have a chance to be a part of the MSA. It's going to be a great opportunity to get the first years involved.
And one thing I'll add as well, or two quick things, is basically that some of these directorships do have responsibilities or the ability to kind of maximize their use of the summer. So one of the new directorships, which I'll also, I guess, plug in here as well, student services, one of our new directorships. It's basically inspired from the academic services directorship, which is no more. Basically, this directorship has the responsibilities of the academic, services directorship as with regards to the university, setting, of course, but it also has, different responsibilities and objectives that we want the director to accomplish. For example, we want the student services director to be a kind of outpost for like first years and international students. So when it comes to things like housing, finding Muslim roommates, helping people understand, OSAP, for example, maybe the interest assigned to OSAP, how they can apply for OSAP, all those details. How can a first year find, Muslim roommates, right? Like a Muslim sister wants to find Muslim roommates, a brother wants to find Muslim roommates, these kind of things. As you can see, these are objectives that would most likely have to be done before the school year starts because it might be too late. They might have already found a place. They might have already, signed a lease already. So some of these directorships, like student services, we actually do want, some of the work to start earlier because this would be a great use of, a very large period of, 2 or 3 months. Similarly, like Ahmed mentioned, although you might not be required as per your directorship, there's a large number of people who, maybe you want to change that tradition of nothing happening in the summer and spring. So maybe, you can take that opportunity as like a socials director, as a dawah director, to use that non-cluttered time to maybe host your own initiative. So yes, you aren't required to do anything for the massive majority of directorships aside from get used to your role. We want to change the perspective we have in the spring and summer because these are 2 or 3 formative months for the school year.
Okay, so the next question we have is regarding whether or not orientation will be taking place in person. Sorry, if orientation will be in person or online, because some people are concerned that they may be traveling and not available to attend it in person. So just generally in the past, having it in person has been a lot more, I guess, beneficial to the attendees. With that being said, of course, if you're traveling, we will try to accommodate because it's very important to us that you're able to take part of the orientation and the training. So perhaps a hybrid, we'll figure like some hybrid, I guess, setup. Of course, you may not be able to, I guess, experience the full, experience, but inshallah, any lectures you'll be able to benefit from. And yeah, honestly will depend. We'll see. We'll have to make a decision after we hire the directors, so we know what their situation is. But if you're traveling in the summer, please don't let that detract you from applying. Inshallah, yani, we will keep you in mind. We will keep your situation in mind. I don't know if someone wants to add anything.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate what Brother Ahmed said. Like, if you're traveling, like, don't let that deter you from applying or from trying your best in the interview or application process. Like that's not what you should be worrying about. You know, like, just be yourself. Just focus on you know, on the application, and then we'll figure something out for you, inshallah.
Okay, I guess there's another question here. What is the relationship between directors of different directorships? SubhanAllah, I almost read that as dictatorships for a second. But what is the relationship between directors of different directorships? Or what is the relationship between directors amongst themselves, I believe, is what the question is asking. And what are the exec's roles in strengthening this relationship? Okay, so the role between the directors, of course, is that we don't want there to be, you know, multiple, you know, nuclearized teams or like kind of mini teams within the MSA director and exec, you know, board and such, right? So what you'll find is that a lot of the events that you want to hold, let's say, for example, you might want to do a hadith competition with maybe like a socials event or a ping pong tournament followed afterwards, maybe make it like a 3-hour event. You know, that would be a collaboration potentially between, you know, Islamic education and brothers socials or sisters socials. And that would also reduce the workload on each of the directors. And, you know, we also want to work together where possible. You know, inshallah, it's in our best interest. Similarly, you know, if, for example, you know, the sisters socials directorship or the brother socials directorship wants to do calligraphy, right? Because, you know, maybe they're running out of ideas for a creative event. This would be a great time to touch base with, you know, Al-Qalam, right? And maybe reach out to them about a potential collaboration. So the answer to that question is essentially we want the relationship between directors to be, you know, collaborative in the sense that when there's an opportunity for collaboration and it benefits, you know, it's of benefit to the community to collaborate amongst each other and to also provide input, right? You know, because at the end of the day, you know, we are Muslims, right? We forbid the evil, we enjoin the good. If you see something that should be corrected, if you see something that can be done better or maybe be advised upon, this is not something that has to be relegated to your specific role. You should bring it up, of course, with the adab of nasiha and such, bring it up at the team meeting. But we want our team to feel comfortable correcting each other, working together, as well as, you know, collaborating and, you know, holding each other to account and supporting each other. If that answers the question. And what are the exec roles in strengthening this relationship? Executives naturally have a sky view role, so they should be responsible for keeping aware of these issues before they arise or become too complicated. Allah knows best.
All right, I can take the next question, inshallah. So someone asked, looking across most, if not all directorships, to what extent or degree does the director control or manage the team of sub-directors, as the director is essentially the leader of the directorship? How much work is expected to be done by the director? So essentially, like, the director is sort of like the lead of the directorship, right? So they're gonna have their own vision of what do they want out of this directorship. Like, what are their goals for the year? What kind of events do they want to have? You know, stuff like this. Like, for example, if you're like a social director, maybe I want to have like 5 events outside and like 10 events inside, something like this, right? And then the sub-directors would basically be carrying out how that would be done. So like, you know, how do we plan this event? Like, what poster are we going to have? What kind of like food are we going to have? Stuff like that. And the director is also involved in this. They can help out with this as well. You know, everything goes through the director, and this is sort of like the relationship with the director and the sub-director. And if you are finding that there's too much work, like you can like sort of delegate your sub-director to do some of that work as well, right? And in terms of the workload, So yeah, this might be a concern that some of you guys have. So what you have to understand is like the MSA is a club, right? And your goal here at university is first and foremost education, right? So if you are finding that there's too much like work, then like that's understandable. Like if you need to, focus on your education, like you don't have to have like 20 events in the whole year for your one directorship, right? Like you can keep it like to what is manageable for you. And also don't be afraid of delegating your tasks to your sub-directors. And they'll definitely help you out with that as well. Let's see what else we have. How much work is expected? Yeah. How much do they collab with the sub-directors in the team? Yeah. So you'll have like a meeting every week or so, or however often you want with your sub-director, and you'll talk about like, what events are we doing? Like what's going on? Like stuff like that. When you are going through like an event or something, then you'll be working more like closely, I guess. But yeah, you'll be working closely with your sub-directors. What is the workload difference between a sub-director and a director? So workload, honestly, I'm not too sure about that. Brother Murad.
I can step in. But yeah, Jazakallah khair, as Rafey mentioned, I mean, when he said that basically the sub-director and directors are going to meet, often enough to have their team function, right? I do want to make one preface, one clear statement is that we always talk about this position being an amana, and it's for a reason. If there are multiple people running for your position and you decide to run for it, you've taken on, this responsibility, knowing and in hopes and our trust and the community's trust that you will be able to fulfill it. So if you're, going to be extremely busy, or you're going to prioritize things that shouldn't be prioritized over your MSA position, like maybe you have an exec director meeting and you want to grab food. Allah pardon and forgive us all and guide us to what's best. I mean, you shouldn't be prioritizing grabbing food, right, over your exec director meeting. But if you have an exam, if you have maybe like a family's night out, right, we're not gonna like, what do you call it? You have a level of independence that we trust you with. But when it comes to the workload, one thing that maybe I might answer the question very easily is that every year we usually get around 200 people on the MSA team, and around 10 or 11 of them are directors. So the vast majority of the MSA are sub-directors. So if you're, for example, let's say al-qalam, and let's say for example you're the Brothers Socials director, and you're getting exhausted of making posters, hire a marketing sub-director. If you need someone to balance your budgets, hire a finance sub-director. If you need someone to, for example, help you run events, hire an event sub-director. The sub-directors are there to help you basically fulfill your goal as a director. And how much do they collab with the sub-directors in their team? That is their team. Like collaboration as in that is their team. So no one, should be expected to solo this entire effort. You should rely on your team, you should delegate, and that's one of the qualities of a good leader. But yeah, that's answer that question.
Okay. Assuming no one wants to add anything, I'm going to answer the next question and if anybody wants to add or follow-up question, feel free. In the past, when Moscars and Mir was under PRI, the workload was very intense because of putting together a final published magazine and putting on a huge festival. Can the exec team expand on what they had in mind in terms of managing the workload for the director that will shoulder this responsibility? It's a great question, and it's something we thought about a lot. So what we're looking at here, you have one director now focusing on two big things, the magazine and the festival. And what we suggested in our deliberation, what we suggest is a good way to go about it is, I once again, like this is all up to director, how they want to format their team. Obviously there are previous team formats that you can work off of, or previous directors that you can get advice from. But since this is a new directorship, what we suggest is something like a magazine lead and a festival lead. And then those people would be able to help kind of lessen that burden on the director. But as director, I just also something that we want to make clear is we still expect that the director, for instance, to have some of the technical skills or familiarity to help with publishing the magazine. So for instance, if you have a magazine lead, you should still be a little bit familiar with Canva. Last year, for example, this just past year, the magazine was formatted on Canva. So you should still be a little bit familiar with how to operate that, what that might look like. So you're able to help the lead and advise them and kind of work through that and realize your own vision, because that's still, as a director, you're still kind of seeing through your own vision. So having the familiarity with the roles and how to take on the different skills will be helpful in terms of magazine and festival to kind of realize what you want to do. But you can hire, as Brother Murad and Brother Rafey were saying, you can hire as many subdirectors as you feel is necessary. So inshallah, it won't be too big of a burden. And yes, that is about all my thoughts on that. If anybody wants to jump in, feel free to do so. Or any follow-up questions. I think there's a lot of questions about because it's like a combination directorship. So if anybody wants to ask more questions about that or clarify anything, then definitely feel free to do so.
Assalamu alaikum. I wanted to clarify one thing that Sister Zena mentioned a while ago. I don't know if I heard it correctly, but did you say that, okay, so let's say someone gets like a role in like whatever director, can they also like be a sub-director for another directorship or?
That's actually an excellent question. I don't have an answer. I'm not sure historically what that's been like. Maybe Brother Murad's Brother Ahmed, or if anybody wants to jump in.
Yeah. So historically, we've allowed, Jazakumullah khairan for the question. We've allowed sub-directors to run for multiple positions, basically apply to multiple directorships. But we have not allowed, at least during my last year and the year before that, I don't believe we allowed directorships to apply for a sub-director position, only because we have we want to make sure that everyone achieves their goals, and maybe there are people that are able to balance the commitment of two directorships even. Perhaps it comes from the community that is able to do that. Even though that's the case, for the matters of simplicity and for the matters of making sure that we don't overwhelm any person beyond their specific role, we want to keep it to one director. Again, it's a discussion that the execs can have. Even when the directors get hired, we can have the discussion with the directors. But historically, it's been a no-go, only because we don't think it's the best use of our resources to have duplicate people in the role. And there's so many people in the community that can take on these commitments themselves.
As a director, sorry, continue.
No, you go. I'm gonna add my thing anyway.
So I was gonna say, as a director, so if you're asking this question, perhaps it's because like maybe like you don't want to be too constricted, I think, or like you might have a vision or something that you want to see implemented in a different directorship. For that, there's always, as a director, delegation is a very important skill to have. So you could have, I guess, you can either have a collaboration that way you can share resources, or you can just give the idea, pitch the idea to the other team, and tell them again, like, I don't know, you're willing to help or something. But yeah, just to maintain, like, I guess your focus as a director should be first and foremost your own directorship. That's just what I want to say.
Yeah, I think I apologize if I confused anyone with my last answer, but yeah, I really should clarify that. So think about it as directors have the responsibility of doing their specific directorship's job, like i.e. Islamic education, dawah and such. And these sub-directors are there to help them with that. So of course, the director will take on responsibilities. We're not expecting the director to just kind of hire a team and then sit back. Perhaps it's the job of the execs. No, I'm joking. It's not the job of the execs. But the directors will hire help, right? And the directors will also take the initiative and have the vision to kind of drive that. So a director obviously is going to run, for example, their events. They're going to lead the meetings, and their sub-directors they draw upon for help, and especially with delegating tasks, are help and contribute to that vision. So you theoretically, to answer that question, I think more clearly, you could do a directorship on your own, technically, but we ask you to hire people to help you. So it's help that you have with your team, both in brainstorming and with tasks. But you yourself are going to have responsibilities as well.
Sister Zena, are you going to say something or?
I was actually going to say very similar to what you're saying. I think it's important to realize, even if you're a director, like you have entire creative, like don't feel restricted within the boundaries of your directorship, especially as, and going back to a previous question about how do directors interact with one another, like definitely expect that if you have a vision with another directorship that you want to implement, like you're saying, Brother Ahmed, you can realize that across directorships and you can suggest collaborative events and, and definitely feel free to do that. While I'm here, I just want to address a question. Yeah, I think Brother Murad, you were addressing it a little bit. Is a director not allowed to assume a director role within their sub-directorship only, or a director is not allowed to be sub-directors in other directorships as well? So I think we're going with you can't be a sub-director if you're a director. Director is an exclusive role, but in saying that, as a director within your directorship, then you can kind of do whatever you want within that directorship. You can take on whatever role you'd like to. And I want to give an example of this. I think it's a good example. For instance, like a clear one is, for instance, Al-Qadam, the magazine or the festival. If you're a director, you can still write for the magazine. If you're a director, you can still perform or submit a submission or anything like that. So don't worry about that. If it's because I know historically it's been subdirector. You can be a writer as a subdirector, but you can still submit as something if you're a director. You can do whatever you want within your own. You can contribute to whatever you want within your own directorship, inshallah. Just don't stretch yourself too thin.
Yeah. Also, like just technically speaking, because you as a director are the one to set the team structure, so you like can envision the roles for every sub-director. So like, let's say you want to do a certain task, when you're, I guess, structuring or laying down the team structure, like you would just not have a sub-director for that. That would just be a role that you want to do. With that being said, of course, like I would encourage you to try to delegate as much as possible while giving everyone a very specific task, so that like no one is on there for the sake of being there. But then again, like you will, as a director, like managing a team, team members will get busy at different times of the year, and you will probably have to, more hands make light work. So like you will have to like fill in, I guess, on certain cases. So just to the question, I know like you said the answers are sufficient. It's just something I just wanted to add. Jazakumullah khair. We got another question. Someone, yes.
I'm just gonna say really quickly. We should hope to wrap up the meeting in about 10 minutes because I think Maghrib has come in. So you guys have 10 minutes, inshallah. Again, if you guys have any questions, directorship application post have all of our emails. You can reach out to specific execs or just shoot us a message on the socials, inshallah. But sorry, go ahead, Ahmed.
No, there's no more question. Someone asked, how are you? We're doing very well, alhamdulillah. Jazakumullah khair. I have to read the question. It was submitted to the forum, so
Alhamdulillah.
Anyone else have questions?
Yeah, feel free. The floor is open. And by the way, as a director, you will have a seat at the table, so to speak, to discuss these and maybe have discuss this with us as well. Once you're a director, inshallah, if you get the position, focus on making the best application and the best case for yourself to be hired. And the logistical stuff, we're a team and we'll work through it together, and we'll be there to help you along the way. You have former directors and former mentors in the community, or mentors in the community as well. So like if anyone has any remaining questions, now's your time to ask, or any concerns, or if you want even an explanation on what a directorship does, on what a specific directorship does, feel free to ask us now as well. The floor is yours.
While questions come in, if anybody has any more questions, I think it might be a good idea, since we're running out of time, if all the execs, if there are any directorships you're comfortable answering specific questions about, like you'd like them direct towards you, or if you feel like you have a good answer, I think it might be worthwhile to just drop it in the chat what directorships you feel like you would be comfortable answering questions about, and then that way anyone here could reach out to you specifically. Inshallah. So like, for instance, for myself, I'm going to say I would be happy to answer questions about OSP and Al-Qadam. I have experience in those and I'm kind of familiar with the structures. So if you have any questions about those after this, feel free to reach out to me through the PRX email about anything related to that. Inshallah.
Yes, inshallah. Jazakumullah khairan to all the execs as well. Alhamdulillah. Again, this is an amana, but it's also an opportunity to gain so much hasanat, inshallah. So, purify your intention, make istikhara, look at the different directorships, look at, these specific roles and what you think you would do the best in, and put your trust in Allah, write your application, and, we will see what happens for ourselves. I think it doesn't seem like any questions are coming. I'll check the phone.
No, we have a few more questions. So someone is asking, what does the Islamic Education Director do? So Islamic Education Director, we have a description actually. It has like the main points. I don't know if you've looked at the application form, but basically I'm just gonna go through it quickly. So like, basically I would say our vision is to, I guess, have spiritually educate the Muslim community at McMaster. So we're gonna have like weekly halaqas. We're gonna have like the origins. So it's gonna be weekly halaqas. Inshallah, we're gonna have halaqas about Quran. What is it called? Reflection. So you're gonna be in charge of, I guess, facilitating those, making sure they run smoothly. And on top of that, you're gonna be asked. I mean, of course, it would be highly dependent on your vision. So identify, I guess, gaps of knowledge that you want to attack and be, with the directorship. So just having like different lectures, I guess, and I don't know if someone else wants to add anything or if I missed anything.
I guess we have one last question. Then I think you did a good job, mashallah. Ahmed Ammar was actually the liaison last year for IE, and I think Zein was actually on the team as well. So alhamdulillah, it is quite a popular directorship for obvious reasons.
We have 4 members here who are part of the IE team. Jazakumullah khair, guys, you did an amazing job. I hope to see you either as a director or sub-director next year.
Inshallah, yes, please do get involved with the team. And I guess that segues to, I think, what's going to be maybe our last question, which is basically, why do I feel nervous about this, despite being in the MSA for so long? What I'll say is that, for me as well, it's nervous to take on an executive position. And I think for all the execs, it's nervous to take on an executive position. And I think that this nervousness comes from a good place, right? Because, you are taking on the responsibility of representing a certain side of the MSA, of the Muslim student population. You do have certain, commitments that are important. But, I would say that, be optimistic in your role as well, right? Be optimistic that, you can do good by it, right? You have fun with the role. That's why we emphasize choosing a directorship that you personally see a lot of passion for. Find a directorship that, you would love. Like when I was Brothers Socials, I always say this, but, I love spending time in T13. So as Brothers Socials, it wasn't that difficult for me to find reasons to stay in T13 longer. Coming up with events in the room, right? So if you find yourself leaning towards a specific directorship, make istikhara and go for the position. Ask Allah to help you purify your intention. Nervousness is not a bad thing. In fact, if you aren't a little bit hesitant, as human beings today, to take on a leadership position, this is something that might be something of concern. So, try your best by it. It's an amazing opportunity for good deeds. If you already spend time in the MSA, you're going to be involved potentially in some capacity regardless. So if you feel you can do a good job, if you feel like you really enjoy the directorship that you're going to apply for, or you're going to enjoy it, it's not going to feel like a task as much as it is going to feel like an opportunity. So I think that's all I have to say on that. Do any of the execs have anything to add on that? If not, I think that is essentially everything that we're going to do for this meeting. Feel free to reach out to us once more with the executive emails and such. We are going to put up some more posts to elaborate on the directorships and such. But don't worry about the logistics side of it too far. Apply, write a good application, make a istikhara, make dua, and inshallah it turns out well. So yes, may Allah pardon and forgive me if I said anything incorrect. May Allah guide us to what's best and help us purify our intentions. Ameen. Zein, did you want to end the meeting, inshallah?
Yeah, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. Jazakallah khair, everyone. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. Jazakallah khair everyone for coming out, and inshallah I trust like it was very, very beneficial. And as Brother Murad mentioned, if there's any questions or any concerns or anything, feel free to reach out to us on our socials, on Slack or through our email. Don't hesitate. Inshallah. Jazakallah khair everyone, and we'll see you soon, inshallah. We look forward to reading everyone's applications.
Yes, please don't delay till the last day, please. For our sake, for our sake. Jazakallah khair everyone.
Assalamu alaikum everyone.